Hello everyone. Now you will hear a short retelling of the film, Hooligans. Enjoy watching. At the metro station, two groups of fans crossed, London football clubs West Ham United and Doping Hotspur. The leaders' altercation turns into a general hubbub, and then a fierce fight. From the harsh capital of Great Britain, we are transported to the United States. Student Matthew Buckner, who studied to be a journalist, is expelled from Harvard, and apparently his rich roommate is involved in this. He bought off the guy by giving him $10,000. With this money, Matt flies to his sister Shannon in London. She met him at the exit of the subway, around cleaning up the garbage left after the showdown of football fans. Matt tells his sister that he was expelled because his neighbor's cocaine was found in his belongings, and he did not even try to justify himself, since the addict has too influential a family. Later, Matt meets Shannon's husband, Steve, a caring father and generally an exemplary family man. And then Peter Dan, Steve's brother, breaks into the house like a hurricane. No one is happy without a sold youngster with the habits of a gopnik. He came here only to borrow money. Steve sets conditions that he will give hundreds of pounds if Peter takes Matt to a football match. He and Shannon have a romantic dinner scheduled, and the guest arrived at the wrong time. He hands the money to Matt and demands that they stay with him. It's not worth giving them to Pete, but only after going around the corner. The gopnik immediately begins to coward the student, demanding to give him half and go about his business. He is not going to take an American to football. Matt tried to kick the extortionist, but was shamefully laid on his shoulder blades. It was, as it were, his first fight, and then Peter, having relented, decided to take choke with him anyway, so that he would learn something before introducing him to his guys. Peter warns his new friend to keep quiet that his father is a journalist. More Americans here don't like only cops and lying journalists. In the company of tipsy guys, Matt learns the charms of local slang. Peter Power's right-hand man is the least happy about Matt's appearance. Besides, it interferes with their plans for today. After a couple of pings and a few shots, the guys and the rest of the bar patrons began to sing the song of their club. In the toilet, Beth slightly pressed Matt. He wanted to go home, but Peter insisted that he also go to the match. The crowd is moving towards the stadium, shouting all over the street. At the very entrance, the violators of the order hide their faces from the surveillance cameras. Finally, an American will see what real football is. The power from under the stadium employee to the fans of the Birmingham City team made his way and began to send them to all possible places, but was quickly seized and removed from the stadium. The rest of the guys are delighted with his act. Then they are going to ambush the subway, and Matt still asks to go home. Offended fans of Birmingham saw that the smallest one separated from the group and grabbed him in the alley. Inserting a plastic card into the poor guy's mouth, they are going to make him a so-called Chelsea smile, but Peter manages to save him with his gang. A van is moving behind them, but as soon as it started moving, one of the Birmingham men cracked the windshield. 20 more people came out of the tunnel behind him, and they started throwing bricks and bottles at our guys. Despite the numerical minority they are fighting, including Matt, who at first wanted to escape, a miracle does not happen. They are thoroughly beaten, but soon a crowd of West Ham fans comes to the rescue. Guys respect. The next day, Matt wakes up with a hangover already in Peter's apartment. During breakfast, he explains to a new friend that he is the leader of the YEG group, a young elite gang. Every European team has such groupings. If West Ham is a mediocre football club, then YEG is a first-class grouping. Arsenal, for example, is the opposite, and Tottenham sucks at both. Their main enemies, the grouping of the Mellow team. Their frostbitten leader Tommy Hatcher lost his son in one of the fights. YEG itself was founded by a certain major, and under him the organization was especially formidable and respected. Although they are essentially a gang, they value their reputation. Finally, Peter brings Matt home, and seeing his bruised face, Steve attacks his brother. Family squabbles turn into a general brawl, which also goes to the American. The guys have no choice but to go to the pub again. Beth makes gay jokes in their direction, and Peter has to put him in his place. Later, Matt packs up to move out from Sharon to Peter. They find out the relationship. The guy did not come to his sister for a long time, because he was offended by her. She moved to England immediately after her mother's death and left him alone. My father is a military journalist and constantly disappears somewhere in hot spots. Peter decided to introduce Matt to football even closer and put him on the gate during the game of ordinary English guys whom he trains. Because of the incompetence, his team lost with a score of 10-3. Bet sees the couple together again and he does not like it. For some reason, he comes to Millwall and immediately catches the eye of Tom Hatcher. He is interested in what the hell the American is doing with their grouping and where his girlfriend Peter is now. Tommy ordered the cafe patrons to shut up, and when one couple continued to giggle, he grabbed the man and started hitting his head on the table. Beth stood up for the couple, but the scumbags are already leaving because the owner called the cops. Peter and the guys were going to follow the team to the Manchester away match, but Beth is missing somewhere. Another bully, Dave, also did not show up. Matt offers his services, but they don't take him. It turned out that other members of the organization were already waiting for Peter at the station. Matt didn't know this, so he still got hooked on the belt to support his friend. Dave works as a flight attendant and arrived in Manchester before the others. He warns YEG that 40 people from the Manchester group are already waiting for them at the station, so they should not come here. The gang pulls the stopcock before reaching Manchester. Matt comes up with a plan whereby they drive past a crowd of Manchester United fans in a truck and attack them from behind. A mass brawl is recorded by cameras and policemen arrive quite quickly. With broken faces, the YEG participants were nevertheless very pleased with their trick, and Matt earned respect and became a full-fledged member of the organization. He even gets stuffed with the club's logo in the tattoo parlor. The guy became bitter during fights and became more confident. One day, on the threshold of Shannon's house, his father meets him and tries to understand why his son did not call him when he was framed. Matt doesn't get in touch with his father because he doesn't take seriously the words of a man he sees a couple of times a year, and yet he manages to drag his son to lunch with colleagues at the Times. During the FA Cup draw, West Ham gets to the mile and the participants of both groups are happy about this, because they have not had a reason to clash for more than 10 years. Matt, entering the editorial office of the magazine, is seen by one of the YEG and tells Bet about it. His father persuades Matt to return to Harvard and jointly restore his reputation, but the guy refuses and does not even want to spend the last half hour with his father before his departure. Meanwhile, Steve learns from his wife that her brother studied journalism at Harvard. In the evening, Steve comes to the bar in disguise and tells Matt that it was a big mistake not to warn anyone that he was a journalist. Steve tries to sneak the guy out into the street, but they are stopped. It turns out that his sister's husband is the legendary founder of YEG. Beth and the guys come to Peter and tell him that Matt is an underground journalist. For a reason, he fell on them out of nowhere and made friends with the leader. They find his personal diary on the students' laptops and take it for a draft. In the article, Steve tells Matt about his crazy past. The last game he attended was with Mellowhan. Hatcher, as always, dragged his 12-year-old son Tommy Jr. to her. Enraged by the defeat of the team and the mockery from the enemies, the Major attacked Tommy's group. During the scuffle, he saw how the boy's skull was crushed. This incident was the reason for his exit from YEG, and when he met Shannon, she threatened Steve that she would leave him if he returned to his old life. Unexpectedly, Peter and Beth attack the boy, but Peter cools down and agrees to believe that it was only a diary, not an article. But the second fighter does not let up and cannot accept that they have sheltered a journalist. Upset, he appears in the very lair of the enemy, celebrating the draw. He asks Tommy to help him deal with the journalist. In exchange, he says that he also finds his major in the bar, whom Tommy blames for his son's death. In the toilet, Peter once again directly asks Matt if he works for the Times. The student seriously framed him and jeopardized the existence of YEG. Naive Bat led Tommy's gang to the bar and he was immediately knocked out, breaking a bottle over his head. Tommy asks his brother for help after the match, but is refused. But then Tommy's gang breaks into the place. The leader is looking out for the Major. Steve tells him that he's done for good. He's very sorry for Tommy Jr., but in the end, after a short scuffle, he gets a rose in his throat. Beth clutches his head, seeing what he has done. Steve is bleeding out and friends take him to the hospital as soon as possible. Peter can't forgive Bat for his stupidity and betrayal and drives him away. Shannon arrives at the hospital with a wheelchair and attacks Devery. Steve is in serious condition, but he will live. He squeezes his wife's hand and asks her for forgiveness. Peter asks his fighter to set up a meeting with Tommy in a quiet place to sort it out completely once and for all. Shannon and the baby are going to fly to America because it's not safe for them to stay at home. Peter advises Matt to do the same. Beth, looking like a beaten dog, sings alone and drowns grief in alcohol. In the early morning, the fighters are mentally preparing for the most important battle. Matt doesn't know whether to go to battle with the others, how important his reputation is, and whether it will be important in America. Shannon called a taxi, but she can't get through to Matt, who is already running after his group and taking a place among other fighters. As expected, Tommy's gang is already waiting for them on the spot. Embittered men clashed in a mass brawl. Teeth fly, bones break, someone brought a knife with him, and someone brought brass knuckles. Tommy beats Peter with a baton, breaks his knee and was ready to finish him off. But he is saved by Bat, who arrived to help. Shannon came to the scene of the showdown for Matt. Tommy tries to get to her, but Peter distracts his attention and says that Tommy himself is to blame for his son's death. He attacks the guy and drives his face into the ground. The scumbag is delayed, but it's too late. He beat Peter half to death. Together with Shannon, Matt returned to America, and there he first finds his former neighbor, the Major, and reminds him that the drugs were his and he promised Matt to help him in the future. He confirms everything in vain. The conversation was recorded on a dictaphone and it will definitely not work to take the device away from him. Walking down an empty street, Matt hums a song that he recently sang with his London friends in a bar.